Chapter 9. Bree grabbed a donut out of the box. Marty can run the address, and then we'll see exactly and how we might want to approach the property.
What about those 2 sketches Michael gave us? Should we have showed them to Oscar?
Everett regretted that he had forgotten entirely about them when they had confronted his uncle. He was now driving Bree's car as she happily ate a sour cream glazed donut. That was Miss Everleigh's apartment. Bree licked her lips. What kind of scum of a father brings his young son to his mistress's house? Everett digested that for a moment.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure, Bree said dryly.
Perhaps we should go up and see Miss Everleigh again to be certain she isn't hiding him.
Everett pulled into a parking spot. I agree that she remains on the list, nodded Bree, getting out of the car. First we should check the address that Oscar gave us. Everett caught up, getting the door for Bree since she was carrying the donuts. He had a tray of coffees and iced drinks in his hand. Marty smiled in delight when he spotted the food.
How did you know?
Iced coffee for you. Bree handed over the drink as Marty and Everett raided the donut box. We have an address I would like for you to pull up. Everett pulled the napkin Oscar had written on out of his pocket, giving it to Marty. Marty frowned as he typed it into the computer.
It looks familiar.
Bree's cell phone rang, so she answered it. Henson Investigations.
If you give Crawford back what you took from him and drop the case, you will be all right,
a silky smooth voice said in her ear. Bree stood still a moment, then slapped Marty on the shoulder, winding her hand and pointing to her phone. Marty immediately clued into what Bree wanted, excitedly tapping away at his computer to get a program to run. Excuse me? I didn't quite hear you.
You heard me perfectly, the man said. Quit hanging around with Everett. Give Crawford back what is his.
And if I choose not to? Bree watched as Marty erased his fingers across the keys of his computer.
Then something very bad might happen.
The voice was pleasant as it threatened. He hung up on her. Bree grimaced.
I'm sorry, Marty shook his head. He wasn't on the phone long enough to get a trace on his location. You can do that?
Everett looked at Marty in surprise.
I thought only the police were allowed to do that.
Perhaps, shrugged Marty. Bree growled in frustration. David wants us to quit. He'd also like his files returned to Crawford.
Then we must be getting close.
Everett was excited by the thought.
He's feeling uncomfortable enough to try to convince us to stop. What exactly did he say?
Just that something bad might happen if I continued. Bree rolled her eyes. How dramatic and vague. Everett frowned. He didn't want Bree to get hurt, and David was a vindictive man. He had thrown his own son in prison. While Everett was okay with taking on any risk to himself, he wasn't okay with that risk being transferred to Bree. You had better not get all protective on me. Bree narrowed her eyes at Everett. I'm not dropping this case. I still have a couple of days left to prove to you that I can get David.
I wasn't going to suggest you drop the case,
Everett hastily replied. He knew she was touchy about men trying to protect her.
I know your job is dangerous, and no doubt you're always going to face some element of risk. I'm just thinking that it might be best if I make sure I stay by you, just in case.
And what do you think you're going to do that I can't? Bree asked wryly, crossing her arms.
That is a no-win question, Marty pointed out as he munched on a jelly-filled donut, watching the pair square off. Don't go there if you value your life.
Marty, Bree huffed at him.
I'm not saying that I'm going to do anything more than you can. You are the trained bounty hunter, Everett told her.
He tried to keep a calm tone as he explained his reasoning.
What I'm saying is that it's better to have both of us on the lookout for any retribution that Uncle David might try.
I suppose that makes sense, Bree reluctantly allowed. At least he wasn't trying to tie her up in bubble wrap and forbid her from doing anything dangerous. Besides Kepler, he was the first boyfriend to do that. He was her boyfriend. Potentially. At least he said he wanted to make her his girlfriend and that he liked her. Bree mentally hugged the words to herself, pleased by the progress in their relationship. "That address is for the mistress that you already visited," Marty announced as the computer showed the results. "Really?" Bree came to the computer, looking at the map that Marty had pulled up. She was disappointed. Another dead end. "Unless she really is hiding David," Everett pointed out. "Did you get to explore the entire apartment?" "No." Bree frowned as she thought back to her time with Miss Everly. "I didn't see any signs of another person living there. But then again, it was all very neat and tidy. It would be pretty brazen, talking to me while the guy I'm hunting is watching television in the next bedroom." "Maybe that's why she didn't want me to come with you. With two of us, one could distract her while the other person explored," suggested Everett. "We need to check out that apartment." "Agreed," nodded Bree. Now she was annoyed that Miss Everly might have been hiding David all along in the lap of luxury right under their noses. "First, I think we should do a little surveillance if we can. Maybe we can get some pictures of David swimming in the rooftop pool." "And if we can get that, we can talk to Kepler," Everett said in satisfaction. "How do we go about surveilling the place?" "Well, we use your riches to rent a place in the building across and break out the high-powered binoculars." Bree tapped Marty on the shoulder. "Anything for rent or sale in the area that we can exploit? Directly in line of sight to Miss Everly's?" "I'll check." Marty started sorting through realtor ads. "Great." Bree grabbed another donut. "I think we should give Crawford back his file. We have all the information copied already. It wouldn't be a big deal to give back the original. It also gives us a chance to directly confront him about what he may know about David." "Sounds good." Everett grabbed another donut as well. "I will be a moment." Bree headed to the washroom. "You are sunk." Marty eyed Everett with some amusement as the man watched Bree walk away. "I told you, but you wouldn't listen. You've fallen for her." "I admit that I like her." Everett was unconcerned. "She likes me too." "That is what they all say." Marty leaned back in his chair, observing Everett. Everett didn't like the sound of that. "Well, she agreed to go out with me. Does she do that with the other guys?" Marty blinked in surprise. "No, that is new. She's not seriously dated anyone since Kepler." "She dated Agent Kepler?" Everett scowled. Suddenly, he disliked the man even more. "He is a jerk." "That's what I said," Marty told him with a dry tone. "No one much likes Bill Kepler." "How could she date that pompous cretin?" wondered Everett. Just one look into Kepler's eyes had him shuddering with dislike. It didn't help that Kepler's personality matched his icy gaze. "She has bad taste." Marty studied Everett. "Hey!" Everett frowned at Marty, wondering if the assistant was lumping him in with that statement. "That isn't very fair." "It's true. We'll see how you treat her." Marty folded his arms. "I'll be here with the ice cream when you two break it off." "You aren't crushing on your boss, are you?" Everett hoped that wasn't the case. This scrawny kid had no chance with Bree. Anyone could see that. "No, I have a girlfriend," Marty informed him. "I just know a rich guy playboy when I see one. You aren't the type to stick around." "This time will be different," Everett told Marty. He didn't know why he was having this conversation with the guy. Marty didn't know him. Sure, Everett hadn't had many serious relationships. When a woman started hinting about rings, it was time to go, in his opinion. Nor did he want any kids. Yet Bree was different. He really did like her and wanted to see where their future might go. "We're just starting to date. It's not like I need to declare my intentions." "What are your intentions?" persisted Marty, cocking his head to the side as he regarded Everett with a steady gaze. "Bree doesn't have anyone to look after her,
so I've taken her on, like a sister." "I'm glad you're doing that," allowed Everett. "However, like I said, we've just started dating. You might be among one of the most expensive group of men in this country," Marty warned him. "That won't help you if you make her cry. I promise I will drain all your bank accounts faster than the IRS."
Everett didn't think that was necessarily an idle threat. He kind of respected the nerd more for it.
"I won't worry about that since I have no intentions of making Bree cry."
"Who is going to make me cry?" Bree crept up on them, curious about the tension between the pair. She crossed her arms as both men fell stubbornly silent. "Someone had better tell me."
"I have a rental property." Marty printed off a page and handed it to Bree. "You have an appointment with the realtor to view the property in half an hour, so you'd better get over there."
"This isn't over," Bree warned Marty, snatching the sheet. "Come on, Everett. You can explain in the car." Everett grimaced and obediently followed Bree.
"You are a drill sergeant."
"Yes, I am," readily agreed Bree. "Now tell me what you and Marty were talking about."
"You?"
Everett allowed.
"Marty was just making sure I understood that he cares about you and he doesn't want to see you get hurt."
"That is nice of him," Bree commented, grabbing a parking ticket from her windshield. "However, I can take care of myself."
"While I agree that it's entirely true, wouldn't it be nice to have someone take care of you once in a while?"
Everett asked as they got into the vehicle. He took the ticket that she handed to him, automatically putting it in the glove compartment with the rest.
"Just because they want to?"
Bree thought about it. "If that's their only motive."
"It is."
Everett reached over to take Bree's hand.
"Marty is concerned. I get it. I haven't exactly been the type of guy who commits easily. I have no doubt he looked up my dating history via the tabloids. I admit, I'm not usually a relationship kind of guy, but I want to try with you."
Bree contemplated him. "That is about where I am, too. This is just beginning. Right now, we don't have to put any labels or boundaries on it."
"Except for girlfriend."
Everett leaned over to give her a kiss.
"I would like to use that label for you."
"That is acceptable," Bree replied against his lips, kissing him back. He was a magnificent kisser. Losing herself in the moment, she ignored the outside world until the windshield wiper was snapped down, another ticket placed under it. "Hey!" Everett blinked, wondering why Bree was so upset as he recovered from the intoxicating kiss. She ripped open her door, chasing down the meter cop. "Hey!" yelled Bree. "I just had a ticket. You can't give me another one."
"I didn't see any ticket," the cop noted. "Plus, you gave me more than enough time to write you one while you were busy kissing your boyfriend."
"What I was doing with my boyfriend is none of your concern," Bree said hotly. "I have a ticket. I had just removed it from my windshield and was going to drive away. You can't double ticket me." Everett quickly pulled out the pile of paperwork from the glove compartment, looking for the ticket with today's date. There were so many that some of them fell to the floor. Everett tried to sort through them as quickly as he could.
"I saw no ticket," said the annoyed cop. "If you'd left your ticket on the window while you were making out, I wouldn't have written you one. Here's the ticket."
Everett stuffed the others into the glove box. Bree ran over, snagging it from him. "See, here it is." The cop looked it over.
"That's nice. Again, if you'd left it on the windshield, I would have passed your vehicle by. You didn't. You were continuing to occupy the broken meter space. Therefore, you got a new ticket."
"Is there anything I can do?" asked Bree.
"Don't park here,"
the meter cop told her dryly.
"Pay your tickets before the city decides to impound your car. Good day."
Bree's shoulders slumped as she watched the cop walk away. She returned to the car, handing Everett the ticket. That was annoying.
"Just how many tickets do you have?"
Everett began counting the slips of paper. "Too many." Bree rolled her eyes. "Don't worry, Marty will go in to pay them by the 15th. He does that each month."
"Each month?"
Everett looked at her in astonishment.
There must be 20 tickets here. How can you get that many tickets in 1 month?
I'm lucky like that, shrugged Bree, clipping her seatbelt on before pulling out into traffic. We're late for the realtor. Everett stuffed the papers back in the glove box, shutting the door. He could not believe that she did business this way. He was going to have to make sure things got taken care of. His sympathies lay with Marty on this one. Everett wondered if the guy was doing her bookwork, because if this was an indication of Bree's finances, they were a mess. Bree pulled up to the pay parking lot, and Everett handed her his credit card. After she was done, he stuffed it back into his wallet. Bree parked and popped the trunk, grabbing a pair of obscenely large binoculars. How are we going to explain those to the realtor? Everett looked at them with doubt. I'm an avid bird watcher, Bree smiled cheekily. I simply must know if there's any nest nearby.
I guess that works.
He wasn't surprised by her ingenuity. Everett had the feeling it was her prime weapon in her arsenal. 2 hours later, Bree and he had convinced the realtor that they were moving in together and wanted to temporarily rent the apartment, as it was absolutely perfect in every way. Bree had trilled on about seeing a bald eagle nest on a nearby building, and Everett knew that his pocketbook was about to take a hit. Not that he was that worried. The place came fully furnished, which was a bonus. Everett signed the paperwork, and the realtor promised to give them a set of keys by the next day. That was easy, Bree remarked as they made their way to see Crawford with the USB drive that they had temporarily borrowed from him.
Do you really think David is at Miss Everleigh's apartment?
Wondered Everett. It makes sense. He feels comfortable there. It's familiar, Bree explained. It's a thing with people. We always seem to return to what is familiar to us. That's how I catch most of my criminals.
Are people really that predictable then?
Everett was curious. Generally, yes. Bree pulled up to Crawford's house.
Can you predict me?
Asked a curious Everett. Sometimes, smiled Bree. However, we're still getting to know each other. Give it a little more time. Everett followed Bree up to the house. She laid on the doorbell, letting it continuously ring. Everett watched her, amused. A maid answered. Hello? Hi, Bree smiled prettily. We would like to talk to Mr. Crawford. Tell him Aubrey Henson and Everett Ramsley are here to see him. Would you like to wait in the foyer? She asked. Mr. Crawford has been expecting you. Wonderful. Bree preceded Everett into the house. They didn't have long to wait before Crawford came into the foyer. Mr. Ramsley, Miss Henson, how nice to see you both.
Crawford, Everett shook the man's hand. Pleased to see you.
Bree smiled, pulling the USB stick out of her pocket and handing it forward. At the last moment, she pulled it back. You wouldn't be so kind as to tell us where David Ramsley is, would you?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Crawford fixed a smile firmly in place, trying to mask his annoyance.
If I did, I would have let the FBI know.
Yet you are tasked with moving the information on to the next person. Bree raised an eyebrow. And you expected us today. Why is that?
Excuse me? Frowned Crawford. Who said I was expecting you? Your maid? Everett commented dryly. Cut the bull and just tell us how deep you are in David's schemes.
Crawford scowled.
All I'm supposed to do is pass on the USB sticks to a colleague. That is it.
Do you know what is on it? Asked Bree.
That is none of my business, Crawford said curtly. Look, I was told that you would be dropping off the data stick today. That is all I know. David is too wily to get caught. You should give up. That isn't going to happen, Everett responded.
He wrapped his arm around Bree.
We are going to track him down even if it takes every last penny that I have.
Here is the stick. Bree tossed it to Crawford. We already have downloaded the contents and intend to give it to the FBI.
If I were you, I would be expecting a knock on your door, Crawford, bluffed Everett. What is on that stick is pretty incriminating.
I didn't do anything. Crawford's brows lowered in a frown. That isn't what the stick says, shrugged an unconcerned Bree.
We should go.
Everett pulled Bree toward the door.
Good luck.
They left the confused man staring at the USB as they exited the house. Waiting until they were in the car, Bree and Everett grinned at each other. You did very well, Bree complimented him.
Thank you.
Everett gave her a quick kiss.
Do you think it will work?
He will be popping that stick into his computer in no time, predicted Bree. When he does, Marty will have access to all his systems. Everett wasn't going to squabble over the legalities of this. Crawford and David were not playing by the rules either. Bree started the car. We need to get a good night's sleep, and then tomorrow we're moving into the apartment. Marty will have all the gear we need to get good pictures. He'll track down what Crawford is up to, and hopefully we'll get another lead.
Hopefully we spot David.
Everett leaned back, enjoying the ride.
Maybe we could grab dinner.
Bree's cell phone went off. She went to answer it, and Everett grabbed it from her.
You are not answering this while you're driving, admonished Everett.
Hello? A voice came from the cell phone.
Yes?
Everett put the phone to his ear.
Who is this?
A voice demanded.
Everett Ramsley. Who is this?
Everett returned the question.
Kepler. I want to speak to Bree.
His voice was decidedly icy.
Great. 1 minute.
Everett muffled the phone against his shoulder.
Kepler wants to speak to you. I doubt he'll let me put him on speaker, so you're going to need to pull over.
Bree pulled the car into a parking lot. She killed the engine and grabbed the phone. Bill, this had better be important. Everett tried to eavesdrop the best that he could. Marty had said that Kepler was Bree's ex-boyfriend, but had not mentioned that they were still in contact with each other. He tried to tamp down a small niggle of jealousy. After all, she was no longer with the guy, Everett reassured himself. When? Bree looked at her watch. That will be cutting it close. Everett wished he could have put the phone on speaker. The problem was phones tended to echo, and then Kepler would know that Everett was listening in. Okay, see you then, Bree assured the man before hanging up. I'm going to have to take a rain check on dinner.
What is going on? Questioned Everett.
I have a date with Kepler, sighed Bree.
Excuse me?
Everett was confused.
When I asked to date you, I did mean exclusively. Should I have been more clear on that?
Bree gave him a wan smile. I'm not dating Kepler. I just go to dinner with him once in a while, put on a good show, and he gives me information on whatever case I happen to be working on. It's a good arrangement.
One I don't really like? Frowned Everett. What do you mean, put on a good show?
Kepler likes to have his colleagues see him go out with a pretty girl once in a while. It builds his reputation. Bree rolled her eyes. I go, I simper, he pays for my dinner, and usually we go up to his hotel room, where we talk business and I get whatever information I need.
Why not get a real girlfriend?
Everett was curious. Because he doesn't like entanglements? Shrugged Bree. She wasn't going to explain further. Bill had confided in her, and she wasn't going to break his confidence. It works for both of us.
How is it going to work when you end up in the tabloids?
Everett raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Frowned Bree. Why would I be in the tabloids?
You are dating me? All Ramsleys end up in the tabloids, Everett said dryly. That's what happens when you're rich.
I suppose my dinners with Kepler would be at an end, concluded Bree with some regret. That is unfortunate. He's been very helpful as a source.
Is he taking you out to dinner tonight?
Everett took her hand. Yes. Bree ignored him, puzzling it out in her mind. I wonder what he wants to talk about.
Only one way to find out.
Everett didn't like it, but he supposed he trusted Bree. They had made it this far, and she had followed through on everything she had promised.
Hopefully he wants to cut a deal for David and my dad.
That is the goal. Bree gave his hand a squeeze and started the car. Bree waited at the bar, sipping her ice water as she waited for Kepler. She had just made it on time. this time sporting a navy number that dipped dangerously low on her cleavage. Paired with the same clutch and shawl, she looked stunning as always. The hotel restaurant was crowded. Kepler approached, and Bree gave the FBI agent a smile. "Good evening, Bill." Bree allowed him to kiss her cheek. He took her hand, helping her off the stool. "You look beautiful as always." Kepler tucked her hand in his arm and escorted her into the restaurant. The waiter immediately led them to their table. "I'm so glad you asked me to come." Bree let him seat her. "It has been a busy day, and I'm looking forward to a nice meal."
"I'm glad I could provide it."
Kepler set aside their menus. They chatted about nothing much until dinner was served.
"We had an interesting development in the case today."
"What is that?" Bree was a little confused. Usually Kepler wanted to talk business after they hit the hotel room, never at dinner.
"After you and Everett Ramsley were seen with Oscar Ramsley, Oscar immediately went home, packed a bag, went to the nearest airport, and tried to skip out of the country."
Kepler pinned her with his icy blue eyes.
"Care to explain?"
"You have Oscar under surveillance?" guessed Bree.
"Everett and Oscar."
Kepler steepled his fingers, ignoring his meal as he studied her.
"I want to know what happened during your conversation at brunch today."
Bree decided to go with the truth. She knew Kepler would just find out about it anyways. "We gained proof of the drug drops and money laundering. Times, dates, addresses, names, even bank accounts. We discussed the matter with Oscar along with David's many infidelities. It turns out Oscar knew all about David's marriages. He also accepted money from David to run through his company. He was money laundering, although Oscar claims he never once thought the money was illegally obtained. That's what we discussed."
"I want this proof that you have,"
Kepler stated firmly. "I was planning on giving it to you," Bree told him. "However, you were a little impatient with rushing me to dinner tonight. If I had enough time, I would have stopped by the office for it. It's a flash drive."
"Where did you obtain it from?"
he asked. "Kramarn, David and Robert's lawyer, was instructed to give it to a friend of David, Mr. Crawford," Bree informed him. "I pickpocketed him."
"You stole it," grimaced Kepler.
"I borrowed it, copied the information, and returned the original this afternoon." Bree took a sip of wine to calm her nerves. Usually Kepler and she were on the same side. She didn't appreciate being questioned like this. "Crawford knows all about it, so no worries. He won't press any charges."
"Illegally obtained information."
Kepler scowled at her. Bree shrugged. "It's still information. Maybe you can get a warrant and grab the real deal from Crawford."
"Maybe," allowed Kepler. He sighed. "What am I going to do with you, Bree?"
"Nothing. I'm no longer yours to do with. We broke up, remember?" replied Bree. "Why are you surveilling Everett?"
"To see what he does and where he goes," Kepler said tersely.
Bree's jaw dropped as a thought occurred to her. "You wanted to catch David first. You had us followed just in case we managed to find him. You could sweep him out from under our noses and save face right in front of your boss. Then you would not have to make a deal with Everett to lessen his father's prison time."
Kepler shifted uncomfortably. Bree pointed her fork at him.
"That is low, even for you."
"In my defense, we've been searching for David, and most of my leads have dried up," complained Kepler. "I needed to make some progress."
"So you used me?" Bree tossed the fork on the table, leaning back and folding her arms.
"I did. We use each other all the time." He shrugged.
"Not like this." Bree stood up. "I thought we were friends. Weird friends, but still friends. I guess we aren't." She turned to leave, but Kepler caught up to her, grabbing her arm.
"I'm sorry, Bree. Come back and sit down. I have good news for you."
"How can you possibly have good news for me?" Bree glared at him.
"Just sit down. We can finish our meal, and I hope you'll be so pleased with my news that you'll forgive me for putting a tail on you and your boyfriend," cajoled Kepler. "Please?"
Okay, muttered Bree. This had better be good.
It is.
Kepler drew her back to the table, pulling out her seat for her. Bree made herself comfortable. She waited for him to be seated before expectantly raising an eyebrow. Kepler sighed.
I talked to my boss about your proposal of turning in David for a reduced sentence for Robert. He's willing to drop charges on accessory to drug smuggling and ask for leniency for Robert's age and medical conditions if you hand over the location of David and we capture him at said location.
That is great. Bree brightened. That's exactly what Everett was hoping for.
I thought you would be pleased.
Kepler took a sip of wine.
So, how long have you and the rich boy been going out?
How long have you been surveilling us? Bree questioned back.
We have been tailing him ever since he came back to the country.
Kepler eyed her.
You do know that he lives in Europe.
Bree cocked her head to the side. You almost sound like you're jealous.
I'm used to having you around. This is going to change that, admitted Kepler.
You are used to having me at your beck and call, Bree admonished him. Maybe we should work on just being friends instead of using each other. Maybe even you and Everett can manage to get along.
I have my doubts on that, scowled Kepler. I'm part of the group of people that are ripping apart his life. The Ramsleys are never going to be the same after this investigation is through.
You are also the man who has helped to broker a deal for his dad, Bree pointed out. I'm sure Everett will appreciate that.
Kepler grimaced. I apologize for grilling you.
You could have just asked. Bree speared her now cold fish with her fork. This is cold.
Skip to dessert?
Kepler knew she had a weakness for sweets. Please, agreed Bree. They chatted amicably over cake before Kepler paid and escorted her to her car. He leaned against the vehicle as she unlocked it.
I suppose I'll have to find a new girl to take to dinner.
I have a friend. She would probably go to dinner with you on occasion, offered Bree.
No matchmaking, warned Kepler. You know I'm not good with relationships.
She wouldn't want anything involved, Bree assured him. Her friend was permanently out of the dating pool after a bad relationship. Bree knew that just casual was exactly what Rhea would tolerate. Dinner, maybe a movie, or just hanging out. That's all she would be looking for. Kepler sighed, then nodded.
Fine.
I'll have her get in touch with you. Bree laid a hand on his arm. Bill, you're more than welcome at any time to come and bother me at the office. Or even to hang out together. I just can't be your go-to girl for pretend dates. I truly do want to be friends.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
He covered her hand a moment, giving it a squeeze.
Tell Everett if he ever breaks your heart, I'll come for him.
Bree rolled her eyes. No, you won't.
Good night, Bree,
Kepler responded before he went to find his own vehicle. Bree headed back to the office to find Everett and Marty bonding over spicy Italian food. Bree grimaced. It wasn't her cup of tea. She preferred to be able to taste her own food, not have the food scorch her tongue in submission. Noticing a leftover donut, she grabbed it. The guys were poring over a computer screen. What are you looking at? Wondered Bree.
Surveillance equipment, responded Marty. These are cool. That is impressive.
Everett looked over the stats.
What are the customer reviews like?
Let me scroll down. Marty adjusted his glasses. Not so great. Everett nodded wisely.
Always check reviews on equipment.
Bree sunk into a chair, flipping her shoes off as she watched them with amusement. Why are you shopping for equipment? You know it's not in the budget.
A guy can dream, sighed Marty. First thing tomorrow, I'm going to the courthouse to get you caught up on those tickets. I'll need the keys to your car.
Bree grabbed them out of her purse, tossing them to him.
How did your non-date with Kepler go?
Everett finally succumbed to the temptation to ask. We have decided that he needs to non-date another girl since I'll be busy, smiled Bree. He took it very well. However, he has been tailing you the entire time, and I feel silly for not noticing it.
What?
Everett was surprised. He hadn't noticed anyone either.
Seriously? Are you sure, or was he just trying to get under your skin?
Kepler doesn't lie, Bree said dryly. You've been under surveillance since you came back from Europe. Are you going back to Europe? That would put a big kink in this relationship thing we're working on.
No, I'm not. The European division of Ramsley Insurance is dead, replied Everett. Jake has asked me to take over the Western division, but that would mean I couldn't live here in the city. I would have to eventually relocate to the West Coast.
Would you? Frowned Bree. She didn't like the thought of him being so far away.
I've decided to turn him down, Everett said calmly. In fact, I've decided to get out of insurance altogether once things have calmed down with the investigation against Ramsley Insurance. Not that I won't help Jake and Dylan when they need it, but I have not enjoyed my job in a long time. I think it's about time to find a new one.
What would you do? Wondered Bree. He had enough cash that he never really needed to work. However, she could admire that he wanted to. Everyone should have some sort of ambition.
I was thinking.
Everett hesitated a little.
If you would like, I could help out here. It's been a lot of fun working with you.
You want me to hire you? Bree raised an eyebrow, secretly delighted at the prospect.
I don't think you could afford to hire me.
Everett had a slow smile.
Not with all those tickets you owe on. However, you might like someone who would be helpful for a small commission on the bounties you collect.
Bree pretended to think about it as she got up from her chair. Straightening the collar on Everett's shirt, she had a slow smile. That might be doable. We'll have to talk over the specifics.
Perhaps over a late-night snack somewhere, he offered.
I would like that. Bree gazed up at him and decided he might just be the right height for her. He might even be the right billionaire for her. I would like that a lot.
Ugh, mush in the office. Go away so I can get some work done.
Marty rolled his eyes. Bree found her shoes and the couple left with a wave to him. Marty typed furiously at his computer and reflected that Bree's relationship with Everett just might last. Everett looked over the city from the window in his rented apartment. Bree and he had a wonderful dessert at a small cafe while discussing the future together. Far from his usual need to avoid such conversations, he had been more than happy to talk about them as a couple. Not that they were anywhere near rings and marriage, something he was grateful for. He could see a future with Bree, but they needed to work through the present first. They would take it one day at a time.
Alexa, call Jake.
Okay, calling Jake, the device said in its modulated voice. A moment later, Everett could hear the call going through.
Jake Ramsley,
Jake responded, sounding a little harried.
It's your best brother ever, Everett greeted him. Dylan? Hey,
Everett protested, a little annoyed.
I know it's you, Everett.
Jake sounded amused.
Any word on our least favorite uncle? He's still not found,
sighed Everett.
We're getting information, but it's not really leading anywhere. That's too bad. I managed to convince Dad to fire Kramer and get a team of lawyers who will actually help his case,
Jake informed him.
That was a fight. Do you think Dad is afraid of Uncle David?
Everett frowned over the thought.
If we're correct, David managed to kill Ted Searson while Ted was in prison, Jake responded dryly. I would say Dad would have a right to be a little leery. I thought Ted died of an allergic reaction, remarked Everett. So does everyone else. However, Ramsley Pharma was testing a drug, and the main side effect was allergic reactions, replied Jake. Something fell in the background. Ouch! For pity's sake, that hurt. What are you doing? Wondered Everett. I'm trying out a new recipe, groused Jake. I didn't use an oven mitt and burnt my hand. Since when do you cook? Everett looked at his watch. It's 2 in.the.morning. I want to get it right before the weekend. There was running water in the background, and Jake sighed in relief. That really did hurt. What is so important about the weekend? Everett tossed off his shoes and jacket.
He happily slouched in an armchair.
I'm going to propose.
Jake banged something around.
What?
Everett sat up straight.
Seriously?
Yep, Jake said proudly.
I got the ring today.
Everett was surprised.
Are you sure? You two barely know each other. She was a tabloid reporter. What if it goes badly and she decides to leak all our lives across the news again?
She isn't going to do that. Jake's tone was irritated.
I love her. She loves me. I know it's a little quick, but there are reasons why. She's pregnant.
Everett gasped heavily. He would have thought that Jake would be more responsible than that.
No,
Jake protested. She isn't pregnant. We haven't even...
No.
Everett was surprised at Jake's unfinished sentence.
No, Jake said shortly. We were taking it slow. A ring doesn't say slow.
Everett cut to the core of the matter.
What reason do you have for not waiting till both of you are more secure in your relationship?
The FBI came by again, confessed Jake.
They've taken all the financial records of the company. I expected that, and I know we're going to be paying out a large fine for illegal money laundering. However, I got the impression that they're looking to pin a few more people to the proverbial wall. You didn't do anything wrong.
Everett dismissed Jake's worries.
They can't charge you with anything because you were ignorant of what was going on. Like Dylan said earlier, ignorance is no excuse, responded Jake. He and I are the heads of our divisions. We should have been informed about the accounting errors. We should have investigated it by audit and informed the proper authorities ourselves. We have a duty to have done that. I can see the FBI charging Dylan and I. You're not going to prison, Jake, reasoned Everett. Don't let Kepler get inside your head.
Well, he did. Jake's voice was frustrated and tired.
I just want to make Sterling mine. I want to be married to her and love her. I know that if I go to prison, she will wait for me anyways, but I would feel better if we were married. I want to build some memories to have should the worst happen.
Everett was silent for a moment as he thought about his brother's words.
Okay. If you need any help with the wedding, let me know.
I will, promised Jake. If you enjoyed this chapter of In Pursuit of a Billionaire, Book 8 of the Ramsley Brothers series, look for the next chapter on YouTube. Also consider subscribing to the channel. Each week we drop new chapters of the Ramsley family drama. If you hit the bell, you won't miss a single chapter. Happy listening!